study,
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
The best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't clone you, but it can streamline your hiring workflow. From posting jobs to shortlisting candidates to interviewing, LinkedIn Hiring Pro is the hiring partner you need, so you can focus on connecting with the right talent. In fact, small businesses report saving over 6 hours per week. So hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
And action! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast. Now, before we get into it, I have a confession. We actually had to restart this entire interview because your seasoned, professional podcast host, yes, me, managed to chat with our guests for quite a while before realising the record button wasn't recording on my end. I blame the heat. It is very hot at the moment. It's ridiculously hot in my office right now where I'm recording this episode. I have fans on me, one because it's too noisy, the other one, and would sound rubbish for you. But luckily, today's guest is an absolute legend and a brilliant mate of mine, and he took it completely in his stride. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking from indie film to studio films to high-end TV, documentaries, and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, how to try not to royally F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. I am Giles Alderson. I'm a writer, director, and producer. And joining me today is the fantastic writer and director, Alex Noyer. Alex is also a producer as well as produced many documentaries and short films and features. But you might remember Alex from when he came onto the show back in 2021 to chat about his neon-soaked sensory slasher, Sound of Violence, which is excellent. We also go way back to the lockdown days of chatting horror and filmmaking on Clubhouse. We formed a right gang on that, and it was brilliant to catch up with Alex recently in Cannes as well. But today, Alex is here to break down his brand new feature, the deeply atmospheric folk horror, supernatural horror, Love is the Monster. It stars Madeline, Zima and Leonardo Nam. And since I've been waist deep in the psychological horror, folk horror world myself lately with Samadiva, we're still in post on that, it was fascinating to compare notes, to chat to him about filmmaking and the genre itself. But this episode is an absolute masterclass in the business of independent producing and directing, and Alex opens up about the massive change they had to make when they were trying to get this film off the ground. Now, this film, Love is the Monster, is heavily steeped in Finnish mythology, and he originally had his heart set on shooting it in Finland, but as independent filmmakers know, we have to follow the financing, we have to adapt. And Alex shares exactly how a conversation at the Berlin Film Festival led to moving the entire physical production to Northern Ontario, Canada, which helped unlock up to 40% in the tax incentives. We also get into the weeds on how he managed a highly international cast, why he loved shooting with 2 cameras at the same time, mainly to protect his edit, and why he often moves away from his monitor while he's on set, while they're shooting. As well as starring Madeline Zima and Leonardo Nam, the movie also stars Kimberly Sue Murray, Christina Tonteri Young, Sheila McCarthy, Anjuli Prelot, and Louis Lay. It was produced by Laurent Gendron, who Alex has just worked with again recently on his next feature film, which is in post for at the moment. And the cinematographer was Russ De Jong. Written by Hanu Aikai, Blair Bathory, and Alex Noyer. So let's get to it, shall we? It is a brilliantly honest, funny and practical chat about adapting to the chaos of indie filmmaking. So grab a brew, double check your recording buttons are actually pressed, and please welcome to the show the brilliant, the talented Alex Noyer. Hello mate, how are you?
Hello, Giles. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. So good to see you. Saw you in Cannes very recently. Caught up nicely. Yeah.
Did we manage to get some rest since?
Just about. You know when it takes ages to catch up? I think it actually does. It's like after coming off a film sometimes. And it's only like, because you were there way longer than me. I was there like 4 days, 5. You were there 2 weeks?
Yep, I was there the whole time.
Amazing apartment.
I think I've just about recovered, and just and now to add to the fun, I'm launching the film. So
releasing this film, which is incredible.
Yeah,
I've just finished watching it, and I loved it. I thought it was so beautifully made. I loved that it lent into the folk horror side of things. I love the characters. And in fact, I hated some of the characters.
Good.
But I really like the way you weaved in these kind of odd moments, these eyes glowing, these wonderful, like, adages you get in these folk horrors, and then suddenly it went to moments of gore that were just beautifully well done. And I thought it was another fantastic notch on the Alex Noyer bedpost after Sound of Violence. Sound of Violence was amazing, so I was expecting big things, and yeah, you've delivered again. Love is the Monster is super, mate. Well done.
Thank you so much. That's too kind.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.
That's it. It was the perfect puff piece. I'll speak to you later.
Exactly. So me and Alex have known each other for quite a while. I think you came on. Was it Clubhouse that we first started chatting, or was it on the podcast first?
It was Clubhouse. I think it was. It was we interacted on each other's rooms during the for those who don't remember Clubhouse, during the pandemic, there was a real sort of live podcasting platform with conversations, and Giles was running a room, and then I was running one as well, and then we also partook in Jed's one,
as well,
of a House of Horror.
It was such a cool thing for a while, especially in like lockdowns where you needed, communication, you needed people to talk to, and you could just invite people up to talk as those people you were like, and if you didn't, you just kicked them out.
And you send them back down.
Send them back down. I don't like you anymore. And Phil was brilliant for that. He'd just be like, "What are you talking about? Get out. Get out." No, not you, Phil Hawkins. It was so much fun. But yes, that's where we connected. And then I think after that there was something else. But then you came on the podcast to talk, obviously.
Yeah, well, then Sound of Violence came out in May 2021. And then amongst that, you kindly invited me on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we talked about filmmaking, the film itself, the journey between short and feature. And we've been, I don't know, we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, exactly. And you're obviously over the moon with Arsenal winning the title, so there is that. Finland, obviously, Finland aren't in the World Cup, but never mind.
But I'm French too, so there you go.
So there you go. Well, la la. Yeah, exactly. You're French too. It's true. It is very true. Football aside, it has been an amazing World Cup. But football aside, we shouldn't talk about that because there's so much good stuff to talk about your film, and this just blew me away with how you made this. Let's talk about how many. Straight away, I just dive straight into this because what did I really like? I liked the characters with the American couple. I mentioned I hate them straight away, and and you've cast Madeline, Zima, and Leonardo Nam, and Leonardo was the one I was like, oh mate, please be nicer to her. But Madeline was just fantastic in her sort of. She was really trying to make things work, and that obviously they're two big names as well. They're really nice names to get in the film. How did you approach them in the first place? Talk us through. Talk us through.
The casting was a journey. I mean, the casting was first of all, obviously, it's quite a challenging story. It's I decided to set a story that had an age range of like 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70-year-old people with like an experience of love. So that in itself demands sort of a certain level of experience from the actors, and And so I worked with Amy Renee, who was also my casting director on Sound of Violence. She's the genius who recommended Jasmine Savoy Brown for that film. So obviously I was keen to work with her again. And here we were talking, and then I brought up Madeline Zima, and I had seen her in the later iteration of Twin Peaks, where she appears, and I knew her from Californications, and also all the way back to The Nanny. And I was a big fan of her, and so we sent a script. She read it, she connected with it, and we had a great Zoom, and we had a very honest conversation, not only about the topic, of toxic relationship and so on, but also, it is a sort of erotic folk horror story. So obviously having her on board for that as well was important, and we had a very honest conversation about it. And it was Cannes 2023 when she came on board, and it was a very happy development. And soon after, Amy suggested Leo, and Leo and I jumped on a Zoom, and what was supposed to be a quick, casual Zoom lasted an hour and a half, talking about the film, about family life. He has 2 kids as well, and we just talked about all sorts of things. So it was really fun. But in the middle of all this, the strike started, the SAG strike, and
Screen Actors
we
Guild
obviously.
strike, yes.
We anticipated it to a point, so that we were already in active conversation with SAG about waivers and about the sort of temporary agreement that would allow us to keep going with casting and bringing the whole project together, because it would have been a huge challenge for us if we had to stop what we were doing and postpone the movie, because it was seasonal. It would have been pushing it by a year. And so, but we were proactive, and SAG were great to match us in kind with that, and we got to the temporary agreement still came about 10 days before we started shooting, but we were allowed to cast. Meanwhile, we were allowed to go through the process regardless, under the promise that everything was going to be buttoned up by the time of the shoot, which it was.
Okay, gotcha.
And so we worked, because the movie is a sort of French-Finnish movie, but we shot it in Canada, which was thank you to Laurent Gendron, my amazing producer, who in Berlin 2023 motivated us to move there. But part of it was a set of demands for the incentives, including casting Canadian actors. So those were under ACTRA, so they were not on strike. But obviously, there's a dual agreement between ACTRA, the Canadian Actors Union, and SAG, the American Actors Union, meaning that they were going to respect all the restrictions and the strike. So we had to make sure that everything we were buttoning up with SAG was going to be also communicated to ACTRA, so that we were above board on all fronts. And so we had a few SAG actors. We obviously Madeline Zima and Leo. We had Christina as well, who came on board under SAG. Yes. And then this Finnish French actor, Alex Noyer, was under SAG as well.
Oh yeah, I noticed you in the
trouble.
He was fantastic. He turned up at the end, and he steals the film from everyone. And that was
that's too kind. And then we worked with Canada to cast the rest of the movie, and it was very interesting because obviously the characters are mostly American. So we had, casting American actors in Canada is pretty feasible, but then there were also 2 French actors. So I mean, noticeably, the actors we cast, Mojo Dilamour, who you will know from Ted Lasso, who plays the goalkeeper Zorro, Kimberly Sue Murray, who I discovered through a movie called Traitor, which was this very sort of contained, intense thriller, which was fantastic, and I was so happy to offer her the role of Harper. And I got to work with Sheila McCarthy, absolute legend, who, amongst other things, worked on my buddy Rennie Harlin's movie Die Hard 2. She plays the journalist. I needed 2 French actors who could speak French with a French accent, which may seem straightforward when there is the French side of Canada, Quebec. But obviously French Canadian and French are very different. But I had met the year before, in 2022, Anne-Julie Proulx, and I had met her at a drinks in Cannes, and she spoke to me with a French accent. So I asked, "Oh, where are you from?" And she said Quebec, and I said, "No way." And so she had fooled me with a French accent. So she was my first thought, and I offered her the role of Delphine, which I was very happy she
She's
took.
super in it. Super in it.
She works with a lot of French movies, so her habit to switch on and off her French Canadian accent to this was well trained. And then I received a tape for the role of Max of somebody speaking with a Southern French accent. Now, Southern French accent, just like maybe a Northern English accent or something. You can't fake that. It's authentic. It sounds authentic. It is hard to fake. And yeah, Louis Lay, whose father is from Corsica and Marseille, so he grew up hearing this Southern French accent, so he has it when he speaks French. And I was like, okay, I'm golden there. That pair is going to work wonders. So yeah, it was a very interesting process. It was quite chaotic because we were a lot of pressure to meet maybe extra demands because of the strike and such. But in the whirlwind that it worked out wonderfully. And then the Finnish actors were fantastic. Mila, who plays Tina, the host of the retreat, and then Tatu, who plays the henchman Petri.
He's great.
Who, funny enough, the role was supposed to be a middle-aged guy, but he auditioned for it, and I don't know, his stature, his presence, and he was perfect for it, and I was like, okay, the age doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
This deep, raw Finnish guy.
Totally, it's like a young lover of the your lady. That it really is. It works. It could be a son, but actually, you go, oh yes, he's brought into this world, and it does work. It does.
It is, and then I got to. I was looking for an international Finn like me, who would have been like a Finn who lived abroad for a while, and I got to meet Christina Tonteriong, who, although she's born in Finland, where I wasn't. I was born in France, but like me, kind of, she lived in a whole bunch of places. She lived in England, she lived in Russia, she lived in the US, and so on. So for because the character of Blake technically lives in Minnesota, but is part of this group, the Lempos followers, all the way from there. And so it was, and she had done a Warrior Nun, which a huge success, and so on. So I was thrilled that she accepted to jump on board to mix the sort of Finnish and international side of things, and we had so much fun together because we were trading war stories about what it was like to go back in France, to Finland and abroad, and living abroad, and how it compares, and so on, and just like and those Finns were so much fun to work with as well, and it was funny because I was switching languages on set all the time between English, French and Finnish. And also, actually, my makeup team, they spoke Spanish. So I spoke Spanish with them as well. So just because of that, it was all the time.
Yeah.
And actually, it was Maddie. Maddie was on an interview behind the scene. She was asked, "Can you say something about Alex's process?" And she says, "He speaks a lot of languages." And I was like, it's funny because it's true that I switch a lot in my work, whether it is in Cannes or on set, clearly.
Yeah, that's good for your brain and good for the creativity and for emotion and different states, because literally different states, people do have different emotions in their language, and if it's there's certain ways that it could be. The Italians, it sounds a certain way. The Finnish sounds much more relaxed, and the French might have so you can practice your tone within all that, which is really nice.
It's a complete split personality system. It's funny how the Finns say I'm French, the French say I'm Finnish, and then when I'm here I live here in the US, people just. I have a very confusing accent apparently about where I could be from. So it's fun to hear the speculation. And then,
yes.
And actually, funny enough, when I was living in England, I remember a couple of taxi drivers like, you're from Canada anyway. So there you go. I guess it's part of the persona, but it was fun to bring all this together in the casting process, as it was during the writing as well, because and this is also because I brought on board Hannu Aokia and Blair Bathory to kind of bring different perspective on love, but also internationally kind of all sorts of sets of references. I think I wanted always this project to feel very international, and it's funny how that international vibe kind of tapped into every part from the casting, the production, and hopefully the result as well.
Oh, totally. The result's amazing. It's a really brilliant film, mate. You made that. It's so well made and so well done. And it wasn't one bit where I went, oh, they've fudged a corner there. It was like, no, it's all really... Well, it can happen in indie films where you're like, oh, God, we've got to get out of this. How do we do this? And it felt really planned. And you had a lot of people to shoot at the same time in a circle or, and it's how you get the angles of that and your 180s. Where does it go? Does it exist anymore? And it's really difficult. And I thought you did brilliant.
Oh, yeah, the line disappears.
The line disappears.
It's hard to focus on not crossing the line when you're like, okay, I have 12 people here. Whose line am I following?
Whose line am I crossing now?
I mean, it's easy to motivate it. I think to not be too technical, but for your audience, obviously, the line is kind of like it's this sort of set of reference that allows you to place your cameras in reference to each other, so that you don't break a perspective that seems unnatural in all that. So when when you decide to kind of break it, it's also because you can actually justify those various points of views and often when you have an ensemble, you eventually have to break it because you're never going to manage to just I don't know, narrow that scope to something that is so linear. So it's
very true. And
again, that's a shout out to my DP Russ De Jong and his amazing team at North Film Co. He's like, it's crazy. His team is like a special forces team who arrive. They have those trucks filled with kit and stuff. As a indie production, we were never going to have enough kit, and yet we started to work with Russ, who has this whole company that has all their kit and stuff, who does much bigger productions, so that once in a while they can take a movie like ours, a much smaller movie, smaller budget, smaller everything, and just jump on board all wholeheartedly. And so it was a very fun collaboration, and I think that also, because the whole film was a challenge to shoot because of time. We had 20 days because of weather, because of all sorts of things. For the cast and crew to arrive and see this sort of very, very well-oiled machine of production with this, first you have a very greatly powerful and organized producer in Laurent Gendron, and then you have Russ and his team and everything. I think it brings about a lot of confidence, which allows us to deal with the challenges of a shoot like this, changing everything.
Everything changes. So everything, you have to adapt constantly with a film like this. Let's just talk about Laurent Gendron. Gendron? How do you pronounce this?
Gendron.
Gendron. It's brilliant. That rolls off the tongue. In terms of why you didn't shoot in Finland and why you chose to shoot in Canada, because I thought this was set. It is set in Finland. I actually thought it was shot in Finland. It's only when you told me a minute ago, I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. And that changes a lot of things in terms of tax credits, in terms of co-pros, in terms of all sorts of bits and pieces, where you're getting your funding from, where it's moving, where your production company is. What was the choice then? What did Laurent say that made you go, hey, yeah, let's go shoot in Canada as opposed to Finland?
So I was set on shooting it in Finland. For me, as a Finn myself, I didn't have French, half Finnish, but as a Finn, I wanted to shoot this movie, this Finnish story in Finland based on Finnish mythology. Say the word Finnish as many times as you can while describing the production. But it was Berlin 2023. So in February it was coming up. I was going there because we were going to essentially finish the packaging with, while we were there, we had a lot more elements. And I had just watched a movie called A Wounded Fawn starring Josh Rubin. Josh Rubin is a buddy of mine, and he was like, oh, you're going to Berlin. The producer of Wounded Fawn, Laurent Gendron, is going to Berlin as well. You two should meet up for a coffee. I think you'll get along famously because she's French Canadian, I'm French. We like to talk and we're experienced producers, the two of us. So it was supposed to be just a social call, casual coffee, and we talked about what we were trying to do with Love Is the Monster, and she said, have you considered Canada? And at that point, that casual coffee that was supposed to be just a half an hour turned into 2.5-hour workshop.
Brilliant.
And, I was aware that Canada and Finland looked very similar. And it was very interesting. It was very challenging suddenly to kind of picture everything I had evaluated for Finland, but in Canada. But she made a very compelling case, and we kept the conversation going. And she made such a compelling case that we did shoot it there. And she took the helm of the production on that side, and we had a brilliant time with the resources that it allowed us to push our resources further as well. Like the cost ratio was much, I mean, Finland has very specific offering and great cash rebate and great things that are very advantageous, and that's why there's a lot of productions happening. But for the challenge volume, for casting, for distances, for everything, Canada made a lot of sense. And yeah, Laurence convinced me completely, and there we go. We shot this in at the end of summer in Canada, which felt like we were shooting in Finland. In fact, when I was recceing, I posted a story on Instagram, not saying what I was up to, but just showing where I was. And I had friends in Finland offended I hadn't gotten in touch while being there, and I was like, no, actually, I'm in Canada. So it looked like Finland.
It totally
felt
works.
And the production
It
scope
smelled like Finland as well, because you guys are there doing your thing. So on that then, getting to Canada from Finland, in terms of your equity, in terms of financing the movie, how did you go about that then? Did things change when you we're going to Canada? Did you already have a pot of money that you were going, well, it doesn't matter where I've got this pot of money in the production company?
Yeah, we had our investors committed with a scope of private equity and soft money, so the incentives.
Was that based off cast as well, Alex? Did it make a difference, or did they just trust you at this point? Because
they had expectations on cast, but they were pretty much on board. Some of them were like some Nordic investors, some more of the region, actually, broadly. There was some were from Estonia and stuff like that, and it was interesting because it was also about making, I initially sold them on the idea of Nordic horror, because Nordic genre films are quite few and far between, and obviously people talk about Midsummer, but Midsummer is an American movie, and it's a very different experience. Whereas, like, this is obviously a Finnish filmmaker, Finnish story, and so on, and there is an appetite for Nordic genre, because it's still quite elusive, maybe mysterious, or maybe attractive in that way. And so that's how I got them kind of interested. And then the casting was part of it, but not decisive. But it was still, they were very happy when we started to get things moving, especially when we dealt with the situation of the strike. They were very happy with the way we dealt with that. And then we took it from there. We had this initial investment, and then the only thing is we went, obviously, from what was going to be a 25% cash rebate from Finland to up to 40% as tax incentives from Canada on a production service basis. So essentially, you hire everything locally. It demands that you get your crew, a bunch of your cast there, and so on. So that's what I was mentioning about the casting, and then it also incentivizes. You have Canadian incentives, then Ontario incentives, then you have some creative incentives related to post-production and VFX, and then you have a lot of things that are just like that you break down, and so you're packaging and see how you can incentivize. And then I went back to our investors and I just said, okay, so we are up to this, so we need you guys to go to this. And then they were happy with the package, and we got to greenlight it quite quickly, which was good, because we were still dealing with the administrative challenge of the strike, so we had to be able to be focused on that, of casting, of all that. So, indie filmmaking, they always say, indie filmmaking or film production is like riding a bike, except you're on fire, your bike is on fire, and you're in hell.
Basically.
But again, working with I had worked with Hannu Elki, obviously, on Sound of Violence, and here having Hannu was on board, but more on a creative side, post-production and so on, and a co-writer, obviously. And then Laurence kind of took the helm as well for the first, initially, what was supposed to be production services, but really becoming the lead producer on the film. There was a great I think there was a great enthusiasm about the project, and making sure that it got made together. You know, with our limited budget, we just, and everybody, and I think this is something that in filmmaking, in indie filmmaking especially, it's important, is to, when people kind of, you create packages with an allocations within your budget for them, and then they're like, I'll make it work. So
Hmm.
that mentality in a project that has a whole bunch of challenges, a lot of outdoors, a lot of things that are just, we had to, the intimacy needed to be, so we had a fantastic intimacy coordinator, but
Hmm.
all this comes with, timing those days and such need to be made accommodating for that. Obviously working tightly with the union, especially in light of the temporary agreement that we had with SAG and ACTRA that was going to match whatever SAG was demanding. So we had to work with that. Again, this is the challenge of production. This is where the baptism of fires for a lot of producers, or for like experienced producers like Laurence and myself. Like, this is where we this is where we earn our money.
You do, yeah. This
And
is where
then,
you come to the fore.
as a director, having the ability to rely on Laurence to take off my producer hat completely, so I can direct,
Hmm.
and relying on Laurence was a challenge. So yeah,
Yeah.
that also brings a lot of confidence, sorry, to our investors.
And
They
it's so
want to know
important.
that we have a team that is ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go. But it's so important to have that relationship, to have that collaboration with someone who you trust entirely, that you
Yeah.
can literally, like you say, just go, oh, don't worry, I don't need to think about that producing side of it, or how the food's getting here, or how we get into that location. You hope your production management's doing that, but you know that the producer's on top of it. And if you do that and you trust, well, then great, and you can get on with your job. It's so important. And you mentioned there about going back to your investors again and saying, hey, this is the plan. What is it you actually say? Because obviously you've got to have all your paperwork in a row. You've got to make sure that that's all done. The waterfall's all correct. You've got to make sure that they know exactly what the return of investment is, and also that they can
Big
lose
scary
all
letter.
their money. Yeah, this is the scary letter. What is it you do at that point? Obviously, hopefully they've maybe invested in you before in The Sound of Violence, but maybe not, or one of the other films.
No, it was a
What did
different.
you do?
The bunch was not the same as Sound of Violence, although there in part yes, but mostly kind of broader. And one of the key things I would say um, is to be very direct and transparent about the road to success, not to success as a film. You cannot predict whether an indie film is going to work or not. The movie is about to come out. We'll see what turns out, but um the here's the road to make the movie, or to deliver the movie. And that in itself, when people tell you that making a movie is a miracle, it's because it is paved with a whole set of obstacles, from development through to production, post-production, and delivery, that could undo the whole thing. That little piece of thread that you start pulling on, and just everything
Hmm.
falls apart. So you have to. So one of the things that I greatly believe, you have two types of investors. You have investors who have invested in movies before, are aware, are not scared of that big scary letter, one of the documents they have to sign that says, this is the worst investment you've ever made. You're going to lose your money,
Hmm.
blah blah blah. And then you have the investors who've never invested in movies, and read this letter for the
Yeah,
first time.
read that letter.
And
They question
but
you.
I think the one thing that I try to convince them is that, obviously, this is a movie that I can deliver.
Hmm.
The number one
Yeah.
thing is, I'm making a promise that I can deliver this film, and keeping them abreast of the team building around it, casting obviously as well, the people with experience, with a sort of demonstration of their talent, and the offering of being able to do their job. That professional aptitude is greatly reassuring.
Mm.
We were on a limited budget. We managed to cast this movie in a very satisfying way,
Very
and we were
satisfying,
just like,
yes.
but we had to, for that to happen, especially with the interim agreement with SAG, we had to kind of have this already. We had to be greenlit, really. We couldn't get that interim agreement without being greenlit. So I had to bring them that confidence. So
Yeah.
it is difficult, and you have to face a lot of rejection. I mean, this is an industry of rejection, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But when you bring about people who are willing to take the bet or the risk, because they believe in the IP, they believe in a long-term value, they believe in what could spin off from it, or anything, it's this is when you unlock not just the equity on a literal basis, but also that belief that makes them sign off on the equity. And
You're
I think it's
absolutely right. Yeah.
again, knowing what you're selling them as well in terms of the soft money and stuff, and not trying to over embellish what you have is at that point is what brings it home.
It brings it home. Absolutely. That's the moment they go, yes, I will sign this. It's usually because they like you, they trust you, and you've pitched them in the right way of how this film will go. So if they don't like you or trust you, they're not parting with their money regardless of whether they think it's a good investment.
Well, they just backed another movie of mine that we just finished post-production on, but also produced by Laurent Gendron, actually, called These Little Ones Perish, a drama that we shot in January 25, but it was just, so
yes.
They also understand the slate economics. I mean, I'm not selling them a slate. Do not go to investors selling them a slate before you're selling them a project. But understanding that I was lucky that I convinced them that they wanted, when they came on board Love is a Monster, they were edging their investment on several films. So they were not going to be like just this film. It was going to be several together. And that was obviously phenomenal. But it is about, in that case, it is about your ability to put the wheels in motion and all the way to delivery, and keep that going with a sort of confidence that one of them will hit, hopefully.
Yeah, no, totally. It's and brilliantly well put there as well, right? Very nice. Obviously, your last film, Sound of Violence, was very neon-soaked, very dark, and it's a real shift in tone, I feel, for you as well, really, because that was a sensory slasher, whereas Love is the Monster sort of marks, as we were talking before, much more of a folk horror, atmospheric, practical creature design in some way, creatures. And that grounds the terror sort of massively in the relationships of what you've brought to this film. What was it you went into as a director between, looking at Sound of Violence and how brilliant that film is, compared to Love is the Monster, which is also brilliant, but you might not think it's the same director, which is great, right? I think that's really good. I mean, it's definitely got your flourishes in there. But how did you approach it? What did you approach it differently? Did you think about how folk horrors? Did you watch a load of folk horrors about what you wanted from this?
Marvel Television's Wonder Man, an 8-episode series, now streaming on Disney+.
A superhero remake, not exactly what we'd expect from an Oscar-winning director.
Action! Simon Williams, audition for Wonder Man.
I'm gonna need you to sign this, assuming you don't have superpowers.
I'll never work again if anyone found out.
My lips are sealed.
Marvel Television's Wonder Man. All 8 episodes now streaming, only on Disney+.
Do you hear that? Sounds like breakfast is ready. Because Quaker's coming in hot with morning nutrition. 100% whole grain oats and a good source of fiber to fuel the rhythm of your morning and kickstart your day. And that sounds absolutely delicious. Fuel to start whatever's next. Quaker, official sponsor of FIFA World Cup 26.
Let's go! This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs, so you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
I did, because first of all, thank you. This idea came all the way back in 2020. It was like it was after. Funny enough, it was during the kind of pandemic. It was the holidays, Christmas in 2020, and I was in Finland, and this is when I got the email that Sound of Violence got into South by Southwest. So I was like, oh my god! And I had developed this crazy idea. It's been a while. I've been wanting to make a Finnish horror movie. I had one in 2017. Unfortunately, didn't happen. It was an eco thriller called Sielu in it. And then this was like, okay, well, let's pivot and see this one. And I got to dive in. I wanted to do something with Finnish mythology, which is a mostly in a poetry book called the Kalevala, but it is also sufficiently underexplored that I could explore quite freely about it. And so in 2020, I started to write it, and and it felt immediately like something very different. Connective tissue being that I love that some people refer to Sound of Violence as a love story,
You could.
and I do believe that, and so amongst the very human theme that Finnish mythology taps into, I was immediately attracted to the subject of love, obviously universal, and discovered the character of Lempo and or the goddess of love, and I was very much attracted by how different it was. Love is an energy, not a feeling, so it kind of galvanizes something. But as far as the differences, immediately I was stepping into the supernatural, which I wasn't in Sound of Violence at all. So going into the supernatural was very, very different. Actually, I never expected to go into the supernatural. I felt that because of Sound of Violence and a lot of other projects I was developing, I liked the sort of exacerbating reality to its worst possible outcome kind of mentality. But here, it's love, it's energy, and it could drive you to passion or destruction or do whatever. So I didn't really think about how I would necessarily approach as a filmmaker. I just tried to tap into how excited I was to not only do something with Finland, which felt very personal. I tried to, the same way as like Sound of Violence came from my journey working on producing the documentary 808 and working with music and drum machines and so on. It was a very personal journey. Here, this is my Finnish roots. And I immediately went, and the visual was really about, again, what my visual references immediately come to mind when I'm thinking about the Finnish midsummer, about summer in Finland in general, the midnight sun and such. And I really wanted to create something under the midnight sun, removing darkness as a sort of comfort and hiding place. I wanted to have something fully exposed, and it tapped into something unexpected, really deeper into folk horror, and erotic folk horror, really kind of like that. Maybe the erotic side is maybe a little bit more of the French side of mine, which is quite. It's nudity or sensuality is a language that is very sort of the way that it's explored in French cinema is something that I grew up watching. So I wanted to go there. I didn't want to go gratuitous. I wanted it to be, and in fact, that was one of the first things that Madeline and I discussed, is that it was not going to be a vulgar exposition of bodies. It would need it to be a language about love and such. And it was, every part of developing this film felt like a new challenge. And it's interesting because, when I switched from producer to director, that was an amazing, exciting new challenge. And there was my short film Conductor and then Sound of Violence. I really kind of tested myself and pushed myself and got myself to a level that maybe I can do this. Then with this one, I felt that, okay, now deal with something very familiar, but talk to the world. So how do I bring Finland to the world? Finland is a very sort of underknown, underexplored country in many ways. Really recommend going in the summer. It's much less eventful than it is in the movie, I promise. But also make it palatable to the international crowd. And then this is where, as a Finn who grew up abroad, I wanted to find something. And then around the universal topic of love, I got to kind of gel all this together, and the idea, and living in Los Angeles, where everybody has, those interesting new treatments and retreats and stuff that they do, and the latest thing that we should explore to deal with whatever problem. I was like, okay, I'm going to make it a retreat, and something that my friends in LA will spend a whole bunch of money traveling all the way to Finland to go to experience. And in 2022, we shot this little infomercial with Mila Polankanaho, who ended up playing Tina, and she actually plays Tina in the infomercial, and that's when we went in development in Cannes showing. And funny enough, we opened the movie with it because we felt it was a perfect contextual presentation of the whole thing. And it's funny because it made more and more sense, and as we explored it, and then I here's something that happened that I had to really. It's a question that came to my mind, and I wrote Sound of Violence really sort of stubbornly and very committed. And here I was like, wait a minute, it's love. I've been married for well, at the time it was 16, now it's going to be nearly 18 years. And I'm a happy marriage, and I'm talking about my perspective on love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I need people to come on board and help me. Obviously, I was already working with Hanno Elke, and I was already working with Laurence and stuff, and I had their point of view. But so, and then first I brought on Blair Bathory. I wanted to have her perspective on this, especially as an American, as a identifying as a woman, and being as a woman, as a filmmaker, as a horror, as a different generation, and everything. I wanted, okay, what's your perspective on this? So bringing that into the story, so that it's not only my own POV. And then similarly, I brought on Hannu, who is, born and bred in Finland, knows all the mythology and some of the folklore, and as well as his own point of view on love and everything. And so they brought on a different facet of the story that really supported the process of writing it. And when I penned the last draft of the script, it was all their input as well in there and so on. It was very, I don't know, it felt like a very different process. So again, I think it's important to always challenge yourself as a filmmaker and try to not just do the same thing over and over. This is why These Little Ones Perish, my movie that we just finished post-production on, is a drama, which is set in Massachusetts about in a church in Massachusetts. It's very different. And
brilliant. Why not? We can do that as directors. We're storytellers, right?
Identify a challenge, take it on.
Yes.
Out of your comfort zone. And I didn't want to make sound of violence. Again, I would love to continue exploring the universe
world, of course,
but in this movie, I didn't want to feel.
I think that's important as filmmakers, that we don't get stuck in a box. You're not doing the same film over and over, and people are surprised and challenged by what you're bringing to the table. It's so important to do that. Otherwise, like I say, you're just, oh God, I'm doing the same thing again, and it is hard to push. Supernatural horror is really hard. I've just done it with Samadiva, and it's really tricky because everyone's got an opinion on it. Everyone sort of said, well, you could do this character could do this, and well, why don't they just fly across the room here? And you're like, well, yes, but that's VFX, and we could. So whereas obviously a drama, you've got, well, this is the linear story. I'm going to shoot the story. The actors are telling the story of this. So it's quite fascinating. And I love that you're doing these different genres as well now. I'm pushing into the drama side. I can't wait to see that. On this then, in terms of challenges for you as a director, from Sound of Violence, that you didn't expect on this, that you had to suddenly deal with, that you went, oh, that was a challenge. I didn't expect that to hit me so hard or to be so difficult.
Well, I in a positive way, but also in a deeply challenging way. I think going from, working with the main character and the dynamic that we have in Sound of Violence to an ensemble cast, is that in itself is a challenge, because you are here to make sure that you see everyone, you deal with all the arcs, you actually try to map it all out, and all the way to in the edit as well. It's actually you're juggling like so many factors that
you could choose to stay on that character,
you have to kind of weave together.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
You have to kill more darlings than ever when editing, because you're in many ways, maybe Love is a Monster, and I'll put it out in the universe, maybe it could be as well a TV show where we would have more time to explore the journeys of each couples, but we have 90 minutes here, so we have to make this experience, and everybody you're getting this group to believe. And so in many ways, when we escape to shoot this film and to be out of our comfort zone and in almost what felt like a summer camp, we had to bring this community together in those locations and try to find this common motivation to deliver the story. And it's I thought it was, we shot Sound of Violence in LA. Everybody was local. Everybody was going home at night, and it was very sort of. Whereas here we were all out in the Ontario countryside in northern Ontario, and that in itself was a challenge that I had to embrace. And it's moments where and this is great when you work with a cast who demands a lot from you as well, because they're not going to, especially many of them have, they have all sorts of experiences and stuff. So they want you to always, do as good a job you can to not only give your precise notes, support the story, keep always an eye on the story and bring everything together, but also, bring them something that feeds them. And I think this is in itself, that's a challenge, because you in this case we had 12 people to deal with.
Yeah, and that becomes
motivate all of them.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And you've got to be some sort of therapist to your team as well, your actors. You have to, because you're leading the show. They need to know they're getting, not attention, it's the wrong word, but you're getting their shot, their moment, if they need to be heard, you have to listen to them. And with 12 people rather than one, that becomes a challenge every day to go, right, should we shoot that person first? Well, we might not even get round to that close-up. Is that a 2-shot? And you're juggling all that and egos and everything at the same time. And it's not saying anyone's going to be upset by that necessarily, but you've got to manage that. And that's not easy because you're the one telling the story. And it is those tricky times where you're in those positions and someone just says, oh, we finished the scene. Are you not going to get my close-up? And you're like, oh, fuck, I would love to get your close-up, but I don't have time. But that doesn't make them feel great. So you have to word it in a totally different way, which is...
I have to say, this is, again, another shout-out I need to give to Russ de Jong because, again, we would not normally have had the budget for this, but because he arrived with this sort of idea of jumping on board with his big company who does bigger movies and just decides to support an indie like us, they arrived, we had suddenly 2 cameras at all times.
Oh.
And this is a luxury. We didn't have to pick our days of like second camera, which is normally you pick like, okay, you get 5 days across your shoot. Pick them wisely.
And you're like, at the time you don't know as well because you're not really sure. Well, I know I need it for that scene, but I might not need it for the rest of the day.
So being able to shoot at all time 2 cameras meant that we could do, for example, 2-shot close-up, 2-shot close-up, 2-shot close-up, or wider, and then something.
Oh, is
and
that
it was
what you
just,
did? Okay.
And that helped, especially with the challenges of the weather, because the weather was changing. It was like end of August to the beginning of September, so really changing weather over there, and that helped a tremendous amount. Also, there's always something that's gonna come as a some surprise. We had like sudden rainstorm that interrupted a shoot day that we had to move then to reshoot we had to almost reshoot a whole day alongside the last day on the last day.
Oh my god!
So we had a very packed day. Luckily, they were in the same location, but we had to somehow make it work and shoot those scenes. And you're making choices with that. You have to because you're naturally gonna. So here, at least the 2 camera allowed us to kind of mitigate the damage of that. But
which one did you on that, Alex? Which one did you look at? Like the monitors, because did you hopefully had 2 monitors? But at that, are you watching the close up because you know what that sort of the 2-shot over the shoulder might be doing? Which one do you, as a director, prefer to look at, or are you flicking between the 2?
So I like to, when I'm blocking, and I like to keep an eye on both monitors, and then I have the one that's going to give me the best experience of the performance. And because of a restless soul that I am, very often you're going to see me hop off my chair and be kind of closer to just be giving my directions because I have confidence in the frame after that. So I'm here to really kind of actually Daniel, my DP on These Little Ones Perish, we were joking about my job is being a professional pointer. I'm just here and like constantly just like adapting things, and I'm trying to give the best notes I can and to adapt and to be there with the actors. So I have a tendency to hop off the monitor very, very when possible, unless, like, for example, we had a scene that was indoor and I had to be outside and I had to, luckily I have a big voice, so it carries well. And also I had a megaphone for me. But
you didn't need it.
You have to, but I do love to stay close. I'm not an operating director. I don't touch the camera. I know what I'm, about.
Yeah, you could
the shot listing and all that and the choices that we're making and so on. I'm very much part of this, but I do not touch the cameras, and I want to be there, and people see me kind of very invested in the scene, and I will find my little POV that's gonna give me the experience that allows me to give them the best notes I can at the same time as like hearing everything. So obviously sound is very important. So I'm always clipped in and listening.
Always.
Although funny enough, because on my sets I often do trucker hats. I love my trucker hats. Always the same. Which those have like a little sweatbands because the days are intense.
Yes.
So I have this pair of headphones, and I have a tendency to bring them up against here. ear, which on a trucker hat means they get scraped.
Scraped.
So
Yeah.
I completely destroyed my headphones on that, because I was pointing at things and then kept like bringing up and down, up and down, up and down, and it was just funny because it was like, but it's this is who I am. I'm very sort of I'm very as you can see, I keep talking with my hands, but I'm on set. I'm very sort of expressive. I point at things.
Expressive, tactile. Yeah, I can see that you get massively involved, and actors love that.
I'll tell you actually another thing from These Little Ones Perish. I have a tendency once in a while when it comes to making my to kind of frame or point at things. I tend to do this, and the joke
like
is
Spider-Man.
Exactly. So my secret identity of me being Spider-Man is being revealed.
It's being revealed. So basically
Ella
framing
Kennedy
up with
Davis,
your hand. Yeah, doing it
Ella
like
Kennedy
Spider-Man.
Davis, my the co-lead of These Little Ones Perish, on the last day of the shoot brought me a Spider-Man mask. so I was like full on directing that way.
The Spider-Man webs. Love that. How do you know when to finish a scene? Like, how do you know when you've got it? The takes, the edit, the performance. How do you know? What's the gut feeling for you that you go, I've got this?
When my first AD is very mad at me.
Yeah, you could go on. Are you one of these? You go, I could just do one more. And the first AD is like, well, you do. You don't get the next scene. It's up to you.
I think there's I mean, this is as well. The script supervisor is very, very, very important. Julia, the script supervisor on Love Is a Monster, or Frankie, my amazing script supervisor on These Little Ones Perish, are people who also keep me very aware of the coverage, because there is such a thing as like, you're done, you got it. You got it. And, the team, again, the Ross De Jong and his team were very precise. So again, coverage, they had a sense of like, okay, we got the coverage we have. And with the first AD, you work with people who are going to be giving you a sense of if you have 5 minutes more. And if you have 5 minutes more, you go to your DP and say, what is the best use of that 5 minutes? Or do you bank it and move on? This is like, I guess with experience, you start to make choices here. And with experience, when there's something you are absolutely entitled to ask for.
Yes, so true. Yeah.
I just, I push the envelope when I can. I also know when to bank that favor for later if I got it and I need 5 minutes and another time, because there's always that one time you were very, very compliant and finished very much on time or early, and then that one time said, I need 5 minutes more. Because every time you go past your timing, by the way, that incurs extra budget. And I know that seems like, but you're just there. What's 5 minutes? Well, 5 minutes is regulated to be, whether it is with your actors, with Bola, there's a way to deal with it. So once in a while, it might be your lunch, it might be your this, or it might be a grace. So the grace, for example, and I think people need to know this, is that grace is something you ask. Not something you don't demand it. You ask for it. It goes around as on walkies, and everybody's asked. And if somebody says no, they're absolutely entitled to say no.
Basically, grace means like, would you do an extra 5 minutes? Please, can we finish this scene? Because when we come back from lunch, the light will be different, the performance will be different. Give us grace now for 5 minutes. Basically, that's what it means. Would you mind, please? I'll give you an extra 5 after lunch, but we need to get through this. Yeah, basically.
And it's and sometimes people are like, okay, with lunch penalties.
Yeah,
and you just accept it.
You accept those penalties.
It's important. Like, communication on set is so important for that, because you are constantly working. Now, it's generally not the director who's going to be the one asking for that. He's not the one asking grace, but he's the one where you have a genuinely good reason to go 5 minutes longer or whatever, or get that extra shot. It needs to be, and then you go to your first AD, who then takes it from there.
Yeah.
And it's very important. It goes all the way back to the producers and then around the thing, and it needs to be, and you need to have the foresight, essentially, that this is coming.
Yeah, you do. My first AD says this great line. He says to me, Giles, is this the hill you want to die on? When I'm doing it, I need one more. He goes, is this the hill you want to die on? I'm like, yeah, every hill. I'm going to die on every hill and then resurrect and come back and make another scene.
Is it the need or the want?
Yeah, exactly. Is it the need or the want? Yeah.
And sometimes it's a need, and sometimes it's like,
sometimes
I just saw these things, I need this. And,
I edit in my head as I go. So when I'm doing a take of a close-up of someone, let's say, to make it simple, I will, if I've got a bit of the performance I need, I go, right, that's the first half. I know I've got that nailed. Great. Now let's work on this bit. And then I usually do 3 takes most of the time. Are you similar? Is it 2 or 3 that you kind of do to get those? And do you edit as you go?
Yes, I will have generally, even if, this rare moment where you get in your first take, it's just perfect.
Yeah.
I will do a safety for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
Well,
Well, just because you don't know what the other person's going to do opposite them, and then it might change the life of the performance. You've only got one. There is that. Could be
and you
anything.
discover, I think, as Bong Joon-ho said, that your script is only ready by the time you finished editing. And I think it is very true as well when you're shooting it, the page takes a different life. And so it is naturally that you might shoot something that just is everything you planned for it. And then you're like, okay, but what if I just switched this, like this little tweak, and you just use one more take just to try that?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the luxury, and sometimes you're like, okay, no, I'm going to stick to my 2 takes. I'm happy, move on.
Yes.
And it takes experience and training, and obviously you've done this a bunch of times, and the feeling is that no, I'm going to be smart here. I got it.
Yeah, it's true.
And
Sometimes you've got to say it.
it's soul destroying because you're like, but what if I don't? But
Yeah. You just have to take that risk. And in the edit, you know what? And that's what's wonderful about editing is you can find a way around things. It might not be the best performance, but you go, okay, well, we'll cut away to that at that point, come back, and then you go, oh, and then they're fantastic in this part of the scene. It's just how it is. It's just could be the word of saying it. ADR helps massively in so many things like that as well. So it can mix. How are you in the edit? How do you like the edit? Do you enjoy?
I love editing. I love sitting on the edit.
Do you do it all yourself, or do you have someone with you?
I don't. Like with cameras, I don't touch it.
Same.
I'm just like I'm directing the edit. I'm just there. Obviously, I'll let my editor first do the first rough pass of the film. But I tend to remember quite well what we shoot. So I'm gonna, once in a while, you'll know this. You have to Frankenstein a scene, meaning that you have to potentially you have similar scenes that you might be able to get something out of to fix something that you don't have for a scene. So you start, and again, this is, I love those moments because sometimes you're like, okay, hold on, these 2 scenes, and especially if it's a scene that you might have cut, it is difficult, but you got to kill your darlings. You have some scenes that you love so much, but they don't help your movie. And it's actually, once in a while, it's important to try something. Okay, well, how does it feel if I don't have that? And then see if you miss it. But you do find then suddenly things that like whether it's a sound or an image or something in another scene, and you kind of Frankenstein it together, and it gives you opens up a new possibility or something to fix. It might need to be punched in. It might be something, but you do experiment with that, and I think that is what in-person editing brings that you can't do when you're remote editing or you're giving notes on a cut.
So true. So true. And what about sales then and distribution for the film? The film is out now, by the way, but in terms of for you, how did you go about that? Looking for it this time, obviously, compared to Sound of Violence, what did you do differently this time?
We had a road ahead. We were working with XYZ, but it just everything is a sort of a tentative agreement between us. Like we're just sounds great, and then they had a lot going on at that time where we obviously our timing was changing, and it kind of aligned better with Raven Banner, so who I've known for many years, and so they jumped on board and all really, it's again, one of the benefit of being in this business for a while and interacting with a lot of those people is that you're at the stage where you're like, okay, you speak things openly and stuff, and you everything needs to align. And I think you might have a plan from the start that changes and pivots, but it's about after that trying to discuss it openly and to see where it goes. And then it led us to Raven Banner, who now brought us to Good Deed Entertainment and Cranked Up to release it. So it is with indie, it's more organic. Yes, ideally you kind of try to get it all sorted ahead, but with indie, it's just like with financing. You are anyway juggling with uncertainty, and it's how well you deal with that uncertainty and keep motivated and keep going with it, because I think perseverance goes with having a vision. It goes with having a vision you believe in, having a product you believe in, having something that you're sticking to, and then finding the road ahead, knowing that there's a lot you can't control. All you can control is what your movie is going to be like, and even if things change, you're still ultimately creating the output.
Amazing. Alex Noyer, thank you so much. This has been an absolute delightful chat. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Giles.
Real pleasure. So Sound of Violence is out now. Please go watch that. But before you do, definitely get your hands on this film. It is out on which platforms at the moment?
So Love is a Monster is coming out exclusively on the Amazon shop, actually. This is something quite new. It's like it's Prime, the Prime store first. And then we have some streaming news coming for the near future.
Okay.
And so now it's out in the US and Canada, and hopefully in the UK soon as well.
Amazing. Listen to that. That's fantastic. If you're out in the US, Canada, go watch it now. And for those of you in the UK, I will give you an update when it comes out, because Alex will tell me, and I'll pump that
I will
as well. If you are lucky enough to rise up and do well, just as Alex has done, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. Alex Noyer, thank you, buddy.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Take care, everyone. We will see you next Tuesday. All the best. Go make your films. Bye-bye.